Okay, welcome everybody to this information session about Immersion Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt University. My name is Amy Johnson and I am the Assistant Provost for Immersion and Experiential Learning. And I'm joined here on the screen by my colleague, Carolyn Floyd, who is the Director of the Office of Immersion Resources. So our plan today is to walk you as the parents through a presentation that we give to students about what Immersion Vanderbilt is. And then we will open it up to questions from you about Immersion Vanderbilt, anything that we've presented here or any lingering questions. If you have questions as we're going through the presentation, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box and we will answer them in real time if we can, or at the end when we finish. So thank you everybody for coming out and we'll get started. So Immersion Vanderbilt is a strong foundation for lifelong success. We believe that Immersion Vanderbilt is an equity enhancer and an opportunity to improve the undergraduate experience for every student at Vanderbilt University. The Office of Immersion Resources opened in 2018. And the class of 2023 is the first class for whom Immersion Vanderbilt will be a degree requirement. So the question that we always like to start with is, what is Immersion Vanderbilt? So Immersion Vanderbilt is actually 3 high impact practices together. So each student will have an opportunity to complete at least 1 experiential learning unit, have at least 1 mentored relationship with a faculty or staff member, and have 1 capstone experience. So this is the coming together of 3 high impact practices. So let's talk first about what is experiential learning. So experiential learning is the process of learning through doing and reflecting on that doing. So we can see here that we have a couple of different ways that students are able to engage in experiential learning. So students can do an internship or practicum, student teaching. So these are kind of all of our professional and pre-professional opportunities. They can do community engagement or field work, community-based research, civic engagement, study away or study abroad, and undergraduate research. So all of these are opportunities for students to take what they're learning in the classroom, apply that learning to some external space, and then reflect on what they've learned about themselves and about the content in a post-reflection period. So this is a really great chance as well to think about how we can decenter the faculty member and actually put the student in charge of their learning. And students really do enjoy the opportunity to engage in experiential learning and get out there and apply their knowledge to these real world problems and issues, right? Students will also have the opportunity to have a deeply mentored relationship with a faculty or a staff member. So these are formal and informal relationships that the students will have. Students will have 1 or possibly 2 mentors through the Immersion Vanderbilt process. The first step is going to be to have someone who's going to mentor their experiential learning unit, and that can be a staff person except for undergraduate research. And then they will have a faculty mentor who will help them to transition from that experiential learning unit to applying that to a capstone project. Right? So this person is there to help the student identify and achieve their personal and professional goals and to integrate and apply their learning. So the staff or faculty mentor is really a crucial person in the student success plan. And this is a great opportunity. Students and faculty and staff all talk about how the opportunity to work closely with one another really gets them thinking creatively, gets them thinking about their passion, about their lifelong goals. So this is a really important opportunity for each undergraduate student. The third piece of Immersion Vanderbilt is that capstone experience, right? So these are culminating experiences where we say, okay, you've gone out, you've taken a bunch of classes, you've had this experiential learning unit, you've had the opportunity to ideate with a staff or faculty mentor. How do you plan to integrate your curricular and your co-curricular learning, and then to apply that to some project that helps you think about who you are post Vanderbilt, right? And so students report that this is a profound learning moment in their undergraduate career. They talk about the ability to apply their knowledge, right? The opportunity to actually apply their knowledge in real world settings, to master skills, whether that be writing or teamwork or feedback. All of these are important skills that they're going to need at Vanderbilt University and beyond. They talk about having a lot of pride in their achievements and confidence in their next steps. So students who have gone through this whole process really feel prepared to step out away from Vanderbilt and go into the real world with academic learning and also a better understanding of themselves, their strengths, and their passions. So if we think about what is Immersion Vanderbilt, here it is in its most simple form. It is an immersive experience plus reflection, a proposal, and a culminating piece. So all of those things come together to create Immersion Vanderbilt. So the question of the day for students and probably for parents as well is, how do I get started? Where do I go? What does this process look like? What resources are there to support me? So the first step for the student is to get advising. Please get advising. Make an appointment at the Office of Immersion Resources and talk to an OIR advisor. That advisor will help you do a couple of different things. One, it'll help you to think about your long-term and your short-term personal and your professional goals. So we are really thinking about the student as a holistic being, not just a brain on a stick, right? So not just like, what do you want to be when you grow up, but also who do you want to be when you grow up? And what kinds of skills and connections will you need in order to do that? That OIR advisor will also help them think about all of the experiential learning possibilities. So a lot of times students will come in and they'll have in their mind that the only thing that is open to them is undergraduate research, or the only thing that they can do is an internship. And there's so much that they can do and so many ways that they can tie that into their goals. And their immersion resource advisor will really help them figure that out and what kinds of experiences will work best for them in terms of where their strengths are, what they want to accomplish, right? So it gives them a broader picture. We also are really trying to move beyond the like, what's included, how do I just check this box and easily move on from it, and really focus in on the deep learning goals and those opportunities that are part and parcel of trying something new. So the advisor will really help them to do that. The advisor will also help them to identify and connect with a faculty or staff mentor. So students will know a couple of people, but they won't know who we know, right? So if they come in and they say, you know, Dr. Johnson, I'm really interested in doing undergraduate research in the med school, we have a whole list of people that we might be able to point them to that they might not even be aware of. So we're there to help them to move through that process. We are also there to help them understand what the process is. So just like we're saying right now, start with advising. The advisors know exactly from start to finish what the goals are, what the resources are, what the timelines are. We're really there to help them every step of the way. The OIR advisor will walk them through the application process as much as they need help walking through that application process, and identify potential funding opportunities. And so Carolyn, towards the end of this presentation, will talk a little bit about funding opportunities, but we do have funds there that can help students either in their experiential learning units or in those capstone opportunities as well. So we really want to make sure that we're supporting students. This is the information that we provide about how to contact the OIR. So the best thing to do when in doubt is to just Google Immersion Vanderbilt, right? Or the Office of Immersion Resources at Vanderbilt. And it will bring you to the Immersion Resources webpage, which will allow the students to access the forms, make an appointment, declare a plan, browse opportunities. It is all there on that website. So after the student has had the opportunity to meet with their OIR advisor, their Office of Immersion Resources advisor. Their next step is going to be to complete the immersive experience declaration form. This is a little bit different of a process because what we're now asking students to do in spring of their sophomore year is to just share with us a little bit about what intended pathway what pathway of experiential learning do they intend to use. So the students at this point will say, I'm going to study abroad, or I'm going to complete an internship. So we'll talk a little bit about what are you planning to do? Where are you planning to do it? When are you going to get started? It does not have to be completed in the sophomore year, but by the sophomore year, we want the students to certainly know, you know, what the plan is, what they're thinking about. They can change at any time. This is not written in stone, but we don't want the students to get into their junior or senior year and have never given any thought about what they plan to do for their experiential learning unit. We are telling students that it is open in a window. This form opened, I believe, in February, and it is open until April 1st. And the reason that we have it open in a window of time is because it takes a little bit of time to work through this process. So not only are students going to tell us about what they plan to do with their experiential learning unit, they're going to tell us a little bit about who they are. We want them to really reflect on their values, their beliefs, their goals, because this will help them to see change over time after they complete that experiential learning unit and really see their intellectual and personal growth. It is okay, again, for the students to change their minds. They can switch up their anticipated experiential learning unit at any time. We would just ask them to consult with their advisor to make sure that whatever their new plan is on track. The other thing that we want to stress to students and to parents and guardians as well is that students will probably do more than one experiential learning unit, and that's great. That's actually what we want them to do. So if a student is saying, well, I'm going to do undergraduate research with a faculty member, or I'm going to do this research project with a faculty member, go ahead and declare that as their immersive experience. That counts, and that's a really great thing. And then if they decide, well, next I'm going to study abroad, great. That is wonderful. We want you to do that too. Just complete another form, do another reflection. This is so that the students can, one, make sure that they have the degree requirement completed, but two, so that they can really engage in that deep learning where they're intentionally going about experiential learning and not quite in a haphazard way. So multiple forms, it's great. Multiple opportunities are exactly what we want them to have. The step 3, the final step of this part that we want to talk to you guys about today, is to actually go out and learn beyond the classroom. So students will have a preparation before they go out to complete their experiential learning unit. Some students might take a class or two. It depends on what their unit is. Some students will do a preparation module or some combination of both. The reason is that we want the students to get the best experience that they can. So we want to prepare them to work in partnership, to understand their ethical responsibilities, to understand, you know, the goals of the organization that they might be placed with. So that's what that preparation work is supposed to do. Then get out there and do it. Get out there and experience these things. And at that point, the student will have regular check-ins with their experienced mentor for support and guidance. So if the student is encountering any difficulties along the way, that advisor, that mentor is there to help them navigate that, not to solve it, right? Not to solve it, but to give them advice and to actually put the student in the driver's seat for their learning. Right. Then the student will reflect on their academic and personal growth. That's milestone 2. So after they've done that milestone 1 and they've said, a little bit about this is who I am and this is what my values and beliefs are, about halfway through their immersive experience, or maybe at the end, depending on what the student and the advisor decide, they'll go back and respond to those questions again. And when you put those in tandem, the students will really be surprised at how much they've grown through this experiential learning opportunity, how much they've experienced, how many skills they've gained. So this is a really important moment. That's why reflection is built into every step of the Immersion Vanderbilt process. And then finally, they're going to debrief and plan. So they're going to be asking with their experienced mentor questions like, how do I integrate and apply what I've learned to my undergraduate career and my long-term goals, right? What do I want to put together that's going to showcase who I am, what I've done, and where I'm going? So that's how we are talking about Immersion Vanderbilt to students. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that I can see, more. I'm not sure who's out there, who these faces are out there, and turn it over to my colleague, Carolyn Floyd, to answer any questions that we might have.
Thank you so much, Amy, and hello, everybody. I have been reading your questions that have been coming in, so please don't feel ignored that we haven't answered them. I was hoping the presentation might be responsive in some ways to some of them, but then we'll also get to them at the end. You're asking great questions. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what Immersion Vanderbilt is looking like and illustrate it for you. So we have a couple of different things set up to help pair students with experiences. And one of them, my most favorite actually, is the opportunities database that's available on the Immersion portal. And as I mentioned in chat, the portal is only available to those who have a VUNet ID and password. So the students can see it, but you cannot. So I will tell you a couple of the new experiences that have recently come in. And I think you'll see the breadth of the opportunities with just these few that I'm going to tell you about. This first one was offered by the School of Nursing. So as you can see, a professional school has offered an opportunity for students to engage in experiential learning. The title of it is Impact of Animal-Assisted Interactions on Children with Life-Threatening Conditions and Their Parents. This is obviously some type of field research that students will be able to do under the supervision of nursing faculty. And they're going to be working on a pilot study with children who have advanced cancer, working on reducing stress, anxiety, and worry. Obviously very impactful work and done under the tutelage of somebody who's an expert in the field. The next one is the Coffee Equity Design Challenge. This is offered by one of our partner offices on campus called the Wondery. So this is considered co-curricular. It's not being offered through a school or college, but rather through this innovation center that offers lots of opportunities for students to engage in many different ways, through innovation, through entrepreneurship, through service. And this one is a challenge for students to work on a social innovation practice around the coffee industry. And again, that's a cohort and it is a heavily mentored program. The next one, and you'll see these are a little bit different. So this one is going to be computational research, and it's offered through the library system through a program called the Buchanan Library Fellowship. And the title is Modalities of Textual Analysis, Exploring British Periodicals. So here we are on a completely different track with another opportunity. This next one is also computational research, and it's being offered through a data analysis opportunity in the Yang Lab in the chemistry department. So this one is data collection, validation, and management for functional enzyme design and discovery. And then finally, and I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but these are just some examples of how different they are. This last one is offered through the Provost Office for Inclusive Excellence. It's an on-campus internship, and it's offered for a special projects track. So students will be able to engage in special projects with our EDI office and be, again, heavily mentored, gain some new insight and experiences, and take the opportunity in a direction they want to go. So when I'm saying about the directions that they want to go, I'm also telling you that students can kind of decide what the outcome is going to be. That final capstone piece, that final culminating piece that the students will create is in their hands. I have a couple of opportunities that I want to tell you about. And I want you to keep in mind also, everything that I'm telling you, all these examples are just in the past month. So everything that I've pulled was made available in February. Here are some recent student projects that were submitted. In humanities, a research paper on nationalism and modern government. This is going to be on somebody's transcript. It's been approved by their faculty mentor, and they are going to present on this. In social science, one of the students finished a coffee equity lab project. So that cohort went all the way through about a year and a half ago, and then the student completed her final culminating piece and submitted it, and it was approved. Creative expression pathway. So think arts this way. And this one is Hidden Worlds Photography Installation Showcasing the Wildlife of Tennessee. And I've got two more I want to tell you about. In psychological research, a student did a paper on a guide to coaching athletes through mental skills training. So a psychological research paper for students who are athletes. And then finally, and this is one of my favorites, because it's cross collaboration between humanities and STEM, and I know this student personally, she started researching on microbiomes and then became interested in how that can impact the world. And so her final project was a research on microbiomes and the effects on community. And she's made a real world impact on a community right here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm so proud of her. So those are some examples of opportunities that are being offered to students that they can go, they can look at them, and they can apply to work in those areas. And we have hundreds of these opportunities available. Those are just the most recent that were posted. And then also coupled with examples of what students have done with these amazing opportunities. So they're heavily mentored, they're guided through the entire process. Sometimes they might need a little bit of help. And when that happens, we will provide some funding for certain opportunities when it is necessary. I'm going to share a link with you in chat that has funding opportunities. You'll be able to browse these and talk to your students about them. And they can apply for them on a cycle. They're not all available year round, but we are pretty transparent about the deadlines, and we send out a lot of communications when something is becoming available for them to apply for. We often have informational sessions where they can ask questions, and then we follow up with the students as they're applying. So I think that's a pretty big chunk of information to share. I'll take a breath, and Amy, I've got some questions that you might want to answer.
Okay.
So we touched on this a little bit, but we might need to flesh it out somewhat more. How are students and mentors paired, and how is the mentor different from an advisor?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So when I think of who the advisor is, it's a little bit more general. It's the person that helps the student kind of get a sense of the resources and opportunities that are out there. So it's a little bit more general. That advisor can then turn into the mentor if they start to work really closely with that student as they move through the different steps of Immersion Vanderbilt. So you can imagine that if a student let's say, who's going to do an internship reaches out to the internship coordinator in the Office of Immersion Resources, that coordinator might start out as their just an advisor saying, hey, these are some of the things that you might want to think about and some of the places that you might want to consider doing your internship. And then if the student selects that advisor to be their mentor, then that's the person that the student will reach out to if they have questions, if they have concerns. That mentor will work with them to go over their reflection prompts and think about next steps. So that's how they work together and how they're different. In terms of how they are paired, that's a mutual selection process. So sometimes we have people who say, yeah, I want to be a mentor. If somebody comes in who wants to do this thing, send them my way. And other times, students will have in mind who they want to be their mentor, and we'll help them to craft an email to reach out to the appropriate person. We'll also coach them if maybe the person that they want to be their mentor is maybe not the best person for the goals that they have set up. You can imagine that some of our faculty and staff are really great, but maybe don't have the time to do the work that a mentor really requires. And so we try to help them figure that out, but it's a mutual process.
Thank you. And what would you think of the timeline? The question is actually asking if there's an ideal semester to reach out to an OIR advisor, but what do you think is sort of like a more broad, like when do you start advising, and then maybe how frequently do you reach out to them?
That's a really great question. So I would think, the first year should really be about getting settled, geographically at Vanderbilt and also personally as a first year student, right? So like really settling into one's body and oneself. So the first year I think should really be about that. I would say if a student wants to start reaching out to the OIR in the second semester of their first year, that's probably early enough. I don't think that they really need to be thinking about, this requirement in the first semester of their first year. Certainly by the start of sophomore year, we want to start seeing those advising numbers go up, right? Because what we want is by the time the portal is open and students can declare their immersive experience, we want people ready to go and excited about what their opportunities are going to be. So short answer, second semester, first year, definitely by the start of their sophomore year.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions about majors that have a final culminating piece and perhaps the experiential portion included also. And the specific questions are about the computer science major in the School of Engineering and about the human and organizational development major in Peabody College. Mm-hmm. But Amy, how would you like to respond to about like what's included? So do students need to do something on top of these majors in addition to the work that they're doing to graduate? But also how those fit with Immersion Vanderbilt?
That's a great question. So no, the answer is that students don't need to do something more, right? So if a student is already, doing student teaching, that's a really great immersive experience. And we want to capture that. I guess the only thing that would be the more is the reflection piece. And that's just so integral to the learning process. So no is the answer. If students are doing something for their major or their minor that has an experience and also a culminating piece, then that satisfies the immersion requirement. If they build in that reflection part, so that we are ensuring that deep learning and that intentionality behind it. Did I answer the whole question?
Sorry, I thought I unmuted and didn't take. So I think that you did answer the question. Okay. So we got a question about timing for transfer students. Mm-hmm. And the question is about sophomore transfer students, but just to benefit also families who might have a junior transfer student. It's really just about like deadlines. Do they have the same deadline as other sophomores? And then, for me, I'd like to get a little bit more fleshed out about just what they ought to do when they get here as transfer students and maybe where they should be at this point.
Yeah, so again, the immersive experience just needs to be declared in the second semester of the sophomore year. It doesn't have to be completed then. So please make sure your student understands it does not have to be completed by then. There's plenty of time in a 4 or 5 year schedule for students to do all of these pieces. So transfer students who are transferring in as sophomores, as soon as they get here, come to the OIR, get to know us, right? And that would be the same for juniors as well. Come and know who we are. Let us get you set up on the right track, get you the right information and the right resources. If a student is transferring in their junior year, class of 2023, help me think this one through, Carolyn. So, yeah.
So first, when students are transferring, we try to get a hold of them early. So summertime, we're sending emails. Early in the fall semester, we are hosting specific events. I had a dinner in, I think it was November, for all the junior transfers to make sure they were on track. So we do a lot of one-to-one advising for those students. And then we make sure we are constantly checking our list and make sure that anybody who has a deadline coming up is getting a lot of communications from our office about what they have due. Junior transfers are a little bit of an accelerated timeline because they do need to tell us in that spring semester what their experiential unit is going to be. And if they're going to start it in the fall, then they need to tell us pretty early on because we want that first form submitted before they start doing their experience. For sophomore transfers, they're on the same timeline as the sophomore class because they're pretty much on the same timeline as the sophomore class. We're not really encouraging students to do too much in their first year. So they haven't missed an opportunity to declare anything or any really big advising sessions. No deadlines have passed so far for them. And we do try to communicate with them pretty early on. We offered a game night in December for all of the sophomore transfer students, and we make sure that they know where to reach us for advising. So they have the same deadline as the rest of their class. Another question. So I've got a question about summer internships. If they have a summer internship for this summer, can that qualify to fulfill some of the requirements?
Yes, if it meets the criteria of the summer internship. I mean, if it meets the criteria of an internship. Again, have the student come to the Office of Immersion Resources. We can talk to them about what those hour requirements, the length of it is. So as long as it meets the kind of bare minimums in terms of contact hours, and they do that reflection piece, it can absolutely count. Summer experiences count.
Thank you. And let me see, can an immersion intern, no, I'm sorry. What's the availability for scheduling an appointment with the OIR after spring break? So are we going to be available?
Yes is the answer. Yes,
Yeah.
we will be available.
Go ahead.
It's live, right? The calendar is updated. The students can go in, click. They have to have a VUNet ID and password, but the student can go in. They can open up that advising calendar. They can see all of the availability and choose a time.
Right. And we will offer extended advising hours for students. We did this last spring and it was just really useful and really helpful. So there will be some extended times available also. If you talk to your student, make sure they know that they can email us also. They don't necessarily all have to come in at the same time. They might know kind of what they want to do for their experience, and we might be able to give them some advice getting that set up. But we do want to make sure that they are set up with a plan on how they're going to check in with their experienced mentor and make sure that they don't kind of disappear over the course of time. Let's see.
You want to talk about satellite office, because don't we do some mentoring out of the the Black Cultural Center and some other places? Do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. So we do satellite hours on Wednesdays between 11 and 1 in the Black Cultural Center. And we have been known to pop up in other places from time to time. So we'll sometimes go over to the Ingram Commons for like a first year, just letting them know that we're there and talking about the requirement. We will sometimes go over to Rand and set up some times in the Student Center. So those might also start popping up. But on the regular, we are over every Wednesday at the Black Cultural Center from 11 to 1. And we love students to just pop in. We're also doing some drop-in hours for student athletes. So the McGugin Center invited us to come for that. So we will show up in places where other offices invite us to go. If someone wants us to be in their center, we will be there helping their students. And as we get nearer and nearer the deadline, that happens more and more often. Okay, so I've got a question about the final culminating pieces. Do they all have to be a paper? And I went over some examples, but let's talk a little bit more about those possibilities.
Yeah, I'll let you talk about the possibilities, but the short answer is no. The students can be so creative. They can do so many things for that culminating piece. What we want them to, the ultimate learning goal, the ultimate learning goal is that ability to integrate and apply knowledge, but what that looks like can take many different forms. Do you want to talk about some of the forms again that can take beyond a paper?
Absolutely. So I shared with you the story of the student who did a photographic installation, but we also have something on campus called Art Lab. And this is one of my favorites, so I usually lead off with it. Art Lab is led by a faculty member who's actually in the School of Medicine. She has a pharmacology background, but she's passionate about taking STEM research and illustrating it in different media. So students will do photography. They will do huge magnifications of pictures of very microscopic images that came through in their research. And then they have these nice showcase events where they talk about what they did. A lot of students will try to do something and say like virtual reality or augmented reality. And they'll come up with something that looks a little bit like a video game or navigating something really cool. Some students did a final project a couple of years ago with a faculty member where they were looking at the different layers of archaeology at Machu Picchu. So they were able to create these like different layered effects of how the years of different discovery played out there. A lot of students like to create. We have something over at our Innovation Center, the Wondery, which you heard me mention before, called the Makerspace. If a student wants to create something on our 3D printers, then they can do that. If they wanted to create something using different materials, they can go and practice with those and create any kind of material they want. We are currently hosting a podcast competition. So for students who created an episode of a podcast, we have an opportunity for them to get highlighted and awarded for creating something exceptional. But a lot of students are doing something like that, some kind of recording if they're going on a study abroad. And I see a question in here about a student who's currently on study abroad. So we'll get to that. But they could do some recordings while they're over there, take some pictures, and really show what they're doing when they come back and what they've learned. So there are lots of different directions that any kind of final piece can take. The Office of Immersion Resources hosts showcases, and I'll give you an example of one. If you've looked at the funding page, then you've seen the application for the Vanderbilt Undergraduate Summer Research Program. Well, after students do that, then they do research over the summer if they are awarded, and then they get to present at the undergraduate research fair. And this is a great opportunity for them to translate their research into something practical, because all of us are lay people coming through at the research fair, and they learn how to do that communication piece of the research that they're doing. But it's oftentimes very specialized and very in-depth research with a great faculty mentor over in the School of Medicine or one of our medical center labs. So this is just one idea, and you can look on one of the programs and see many, many different types of research that students did. They don't have to do scientific research for this either. It can be humanities and social sciences. Really, whatever kind of research they're doing is up for an award for VUSRP. Let's see, just scrolling down the questions, and summer internships. I think we talked on this before, but summer experiences definitely can count. Our students do all sorts of interesting things over the summer. You know that better than we do. And they might have some great internships, work opportunities, trips, any number of things that they're doing that could satisfy the experiential requirement. The key is to submit their form before they go. I see a student is currently doing a semester abroad. That could count towards his immersive experience, as long as he's doing the right and fulfills other requirements. Yep. So if he wants to use that, he should get his declaration form submitted pretty soon. And he can talk to his advisor in the Global Education Office, or he can get in touch with one of us in the OIR, and we can help him get that set so that he has that great reflection piece done while he's still doing the experience. And when he comes back, he can do his post-experience reflection. What do you think, Amy? I feel like I've just said a lot. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, that was great. That was a great response. Thank you.
Okay. So going down the list too, first year students are receiving some information about Immersion Vanderbilt. They're all in a newsletter that we send out. They do talk about these in things like their VScepter cohorts and in some of their first year classes. And their CASPAR advisor, if they're in the College of Arts and Science, is probably also talking to them about Immersion Vanderbilt. It would be great if you all would talk to them about Immersion Vanderbilt and tell them to come and talk to the OIR. We would love that. I sent a postcard home to the sophomore families in between the fall and spring semesters, trying to generate some more interest and get the students thinking about it. We love your engagement and your questions. And so a question about funding. How does funding work with something like a Cornelius Vanderbilt Scholarship? Is any funding opportunity in addition to that, or is it something that is separate from it? And Amy, do you want to take a funding?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and take the funding question. So we have lots of different types of funds, and the funding streams that are available on that link that I sent to you, the one before the last, have different funding opportunities that are located in different areas. So something like the College of Arts and Science micro grant is available for students who are doing an Immersion Vanderbilt, and the student is in the College of Arts and Science. Something like VUSRP is available to students all across the university. There are certain funding streams that are available through what we call the Provost Office funds, and that includes something like VUSRP. And in that case, there is an $8,500 limit for any student to receive funds. So the merit scholarships, VUSRP, the Nichols Humanitarian Fund, the Davis Fund, these are all part of that Provost Office funding stream. We communicate with Office of Student Financial Aid to make sure that we are checking that no student will go over. We also make sure that we tell students that they have a limitation, but it's only from a certain set of funds. So we work with that internally with students to make sure that they don't go over that cap, but that they can get the maximum amount possible through those funding streams. Anything outside of the provost office is in addition to that, and we don't count those funds. So if they got something based in the College of Arts and Science, like that micro grant, that's not considered a provost funding stream, and we don't count that in addition to the $8,500 cap. That's something they would get separate, or if they got outside funding. So a Cornelius Vanderbilt scholarship student would be told and counseled that they should use this over the summer if they want to for their Immersion Vanderbilt, and then they would have another additional cap on top of that, so that all students are eligible to receive the same level of funding across the board. Are team projects permitted? They are permitted, and we love team projects. How great is it when several great minds come together and work on something from different disciplines in different areas? It's fantastic, and the students have so much more fun when they're working with a group and they're encouraging each other and they're learning from one another. And the faculty really like that too. A lot of what the faculty are offering are cohorts. And so I think you'll find that your students might very well be engaging in a group project. All right. So we've got two last questions that I think should be answered before we go, and then I think we'll reach our limit on time. Amy, can we go over one last time just what our second semester sophomores should be doing before April 1st? And then can we also talk about, this will be the last one too, how a semester abroad satisfies immersion and the internship, just kind of like what makes those Immersion Vanderbilt experiences. So the first, what are our sophomores supposed to be doing?
Okay, so first semester, sophomore year, come to the OIR and get advising. In the spring, the student will declare their immersive experience declaration form. It's also called milestone 1. Sometimes we'll use those words interchangeably. That immersive experience declaration form is where the student will tell us what they plan to do, when they plan to do it, and if they know who their mentor for that experience will be. They will also do a pre-experience reflection prompt there and get prepared, do the preparation modules, unless they've already taken some classes, in order to do that experience. So that opens in the spring, and they have until April 1st of their sophomore year to submit that form.
Thank you. And then the final question that we'll take today is just about study abroad. What sort of time requirement is it, and what should students be doing? What could they do that would make a study abroad qualify for Immersion Vanderbilt?
Yes, that's a great question. So right now, students who are studying abroad for a semester can count that as their immersive experience. The things that we are asking them to do for it to count towards Immersion Vanderbilt are to do a midpoint reflection or an endpoint reflection to that, and of course have declared that as their immersive experience. And the reason going forward, what students will do is also some preparation work for that. But if the students are doing it this semester and they want to declare that, they'll just need to declare it as their immersive experience and then do those reflection prompts.
So I think that we are pretty well through the questions. I'm just checking. And yeah, I think that we've gotten everything. If we didn't answer your question, we will have a list of these questions at the end. I'll read through them, and anything that wasn't answered, I have your names. I'll make sure that I send an email to you with those responses. Amy, would you like to close us out?
With a thank you. Thank you so much for attending. Please do encourage your student to come see us in the OIR. And of course, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me or to Carolyn again. My name is Amy Johnson and Carolyn Floyd, and we are more than happy to assist you.